Hey everyone, and welcome to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, that is Tim, and we talk about horror movies. And after a long string of new releases that mostly turned out to be pretty bad, and we've been really depressed, we thought, you know what, we're going to just pick something random. We're just going to dig into a random movie that neither of us have seen, and we're just going to watch it, not knowing what it is. And we landed on a movie called The Children, which was released in 1980. And it is directed by, I'm looking at the name here, Max Kalmanowicz directed this.
Yeah.
The notable director who's done many a picture.
Oh yeah. Who doesn't know his early work?
Yes, which I will not name for you because it's obvious, everyone knows what they are.
Yeah.
But he directed it. It's a story about a leak at a nuclear power plant that makes a radioactive cloud that turns a bunch of school children, all the school children in this small town, one school bus, and all the kids become, well, the description said radioactive zombies. I guess that's kind of right, although it didn't seem exactly like what I thought they would look like and be like when I thought of it.
You know what I would like to do, just from that little bit of description that you gave, I'm going to throw an early compliment to this movie, which is I admire its willingness to not even attempt to make sense.
Oh.
Like, like nothing about this is logical.
Nope. In the words of Mr. Spock, this is illogical. Yes.
Yeah.
No, this is just a weird sort of bad, potentially fun, but certainly I think one of the things we can say before we even start talking about the plot is, yeah, it's not a good movie.
No. There was actually quite a bit that I liked in this movie.
There's a couple of things,
but there's also it dragged a lot for me. It was I found it to be pretty boring, but like it does remind me of this certain type of movie that we used to watch, like this low budget, really light on this.
I'm going to jump in and just say that it was actually at one point distributed by Troma, so that maybe gives you a sense of what you're talking about there. But continue.
This definitely did feel like 90s comfort type of horror movie that I would have rented in like high school or something.
Yeah. And it still looks like a VHS from the 90s when you see it. It's on YouTube actually. That's where we watched it. It's on YouTube. You can go check it out for yourself. The Children, 1980. Look it up. But so yeah, we're just going to talk with spoilers and stuff. I don't think it's a movie we have to shy away from. I think you can almost not spoil it given what happens in it.
Although I would like to meet the person who is, would be that upset about the children spoilers.
Did you just spoil the children? What? You? How dare you?
That was the next on my list.
It's only been 37 years since it came out, and it's like don't get me wrong. I don't subscribe to the idea that there is a statute of limitations on spoilers. Right. I do, obviously, there is a point where you can talk about them a bit more freely, but I do think something like putting the twist ending in the headline or on the poster for the new DVD or whatever, like, I don't care how old Planet of the Apes is, I will not talk about the ending in the opening of my conversation. I will maybe have a conversation that's full of spoilers, but I will always start it by making it clear that I'm about to talk about that movie, just so that if you don't want to know anything, you've the option to opt out of the discussion, of the conversation, of the whatever.
Yeah, I'm experiencing that now. Me and my girlfriend just started going through Game of Thrones, which she's seen before, but I haven't. So every time I talk to someone about it, they're like, "Oh my God, don't you love the scene?" I'm like,
just slow down. Just slow down. Yeah, because some people have this strict thing where they're like, "Oh no, it's been more than a couple of years. You can open a sentence with the ending," and it's like, no, just be a bit considerate. It's not that hard.
The weird thing too is when people get mad at you about it, like when you're just, come on, no spoilers, and like, you had enough time already. Like,
I'm so sorry, my life got in the way, and I didn't get to this one. You can't watch everything.
Yeah.
When it comes out, you have to leave some stuff for later. It's just the way the world works, the way time works, it's the way schedules work, and I don't know why we're on this tangent, but the children, we're going to talk with spoilers. We've warned you. But more or less in order, I think. So I don't think you have to. What? Okay. So the two things I genuinely really like about this movie. There's some moments with once the kids become their atomic zombie, whatever you want to call them. Basically, they look normal, but when they hug, their fingernails go black, and they hug you, they like basically radioactively melt the person, and you're left with this burned-looking corpse. And that's kind of.
And I thought the special effects were actually pretty good. Like,
well, they were okay,
like, cheesy good.
Yeah, but you'll notice that when it was changing, like when the person was like melting, it kept fading between shots. It wasn't like they did an effect in camera. It was like, here's stage 1, fade to stage 2, fade to stage 3. So it was definitely the cheaper way of doing it.
I think I don't know how much like modern horror fans, like younger modern kids, what they like, but I think for people our age, though, this does harken.
Tam, you make me feel old. People our age, what the? Oh, that hurts.
Well, there's probably some kid growing up today that like Bye Bye Man's their first horror movie.
Oh God,
something.
that poor child. That poor child. Oh, that upsets me, Tim.
But I think this particular kind of like special effect harkens back to something I discovered like a lot of like in middle school and high school, going through the video store and finding these like kind of low budget hidden trauma type kind of movies. And I like that it looks like a very low budget like DIY kind of production, which obviously doesn't look the best, but I think it does have a charm.
Well, no, there's a charm. There's a charm. It does get boring and tedious at times, where there is just kind of stretches of people walking around, and that's whatever. But it does have moments of greatness, and I would say the moments that I really like with the kids is well, there's two moments or two types of moment. There's moments with the kids in the dark where they just like they'll find them and they'll just be standing there staring. There's one scene with a car where there's just a couple of kids staring at the car, and they stop and get out and just see the headlights of the car, what's lighting them. It just looks kind of creepy. Like up until that point, there was nothing really creepy in the movie, and I was like, oh, that was actually kind of effective and creepy. And there's another moment as well when the store owner looks out her window and there's just this row of kids all just standing there in the light, being really. And it's at night time, but they're under the light, and it's really creepy. And those moments were pretty good. And the other thing I liked about the kids is the movie did not shy away from shooting the kids in the face or cutting off their limbs. I appreciate that in a movie. It's one of these taboos that a lot of movies, especially older movies, feel like, oh, we can't show anything bad happening to kids. It has to be off camera. And well, some of it was off camera. They didn't show everything, but there was enough in here. It was like, nah, we can. The kids are going to kill them. The adults are going to shoot back at them. Admittedly, I do think the speed at which the sheriff is willing to start fighting back against the kids is a little bit quick. He's like, oh, this is my chance. I can shoot some kids. So that's what he's like. But the sheriff, by the way, the acting's not great in this movie, and the sheriff is kind of the main character, and his reactions to things, he shoots things that are already dead. There's a dead dog at one point that falls out of a closet, and he like fires at it 3 times.
You know what I just realized too? I didn't think about it until just now, but I wonder if this is one of the earlier movies to really feature like creepy children. Like I feel like it's kind of a thing we've come to expect now.
Maybe there was definitely. I'm pretty sure. Was Happy Birthday to Me after this? It might have been a year after.
I guess The Omen probably would have been before this.
Oh yeah, Omen was 76. Yeah, so Omen was definitely.
Other than that, though, like I wonder if this is one of the pioneers of creepy children.
So someone's going to point out a movie from like the 30s or 40s that probably did it, but yeah, as far as this era goes, I think it's definitely near the start. That said, it did take a lot of inspiration in other ways from other movies. There was one like bit of the music that I thought they saw Halloween and they thought, we'll take that bit of music and we'll just use it with slight. It's the bit in Halloween that sort of the bit of the soundtrack that goes din 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 din. That's basically in this movie. It's just slightly altered, but it's there.
Yeah, the music was it didn't even feel like they were trying to hide it. It's very Halloweeny. I could be wrong, but I thought there were times when I heard a little bit of Friday the 13th.
I agree, although it came out in the same year, so I don't know if that was. I mean,
Okay.
if it was later in the year, maybe they did like intentionally copy it. I don't know, but it was the same year, so I don't know if it was maybe too early for them to actually be copying that. But even Friday the 13th though was kind of inspired by even some of the cues in Psycho and stuff like that. So
Oh, okay.
you can kind of see where it maybe fed into the same thing if it wasn't directly copied from that. But yeah, so we have basically one of the problems with the movie, I think, is that it feels a little bit repetitious in the first half, where it feels like we're introduced to one of the parents, because the sheriff finds the school bus after the opening credits, and it's empty. The motor's still running, and he's like, "Oh, we've not found the kids." So he starts going around different parents and saying, "Is your kid home?" And he's just inquiring around town to see if they're there. And basically, we're introduced to a parent, and then a scene later, we see the parent get killed. That happens a few times in the first half of the movie. And it's a little bit weird because so the deputy's dating this younger girl who presumably is at least late teens, if not maybe slightly older. But her little brother's one of the kids that are missing, and there's a lot of like he's ignoring his job just to hang out with her. And she's really weird and immature because when they realise that there's something happening and they have to like put a roadblock up, the deputy goes out to like do the roadblock and he's there to like inspect the cars that are coming in and out. And she's there with him, and the sheriff, because it's a small town, so he's got a couple of like locals that are not cops, but they go to help with their guns. They're like, yeah, we'll go, and we'll talk a bit more of them in a minute. But she's like there, she's rode out on her bike to go and meet him, and she's like, "God, kiss me," and he's like, "No, I'm working. I'm a deputy. I'm on duty." And she's like, "God," and he's keep in mind this is after he's already been using time that he's supposed to have been working to be with her in private.
Yeah.
But now he's like, "No, there's an actual thing going on. I'm doing my duty." And she's like, "No, kiss me." And then she gets annoyed and decides to leave. Like, "Well, you're not going to kiss me. I'm just going to go. Screw you then." It's like, he's working. Right? The reason why I bring this up is because I think that she's written really sexist in the sense that whoever wrote her as this, all she wants is kissing and sex, and that's her entire character. But on top of that, the two guys that are with him, and the cast two guys are very similar. They're both sort of balding, they both got goatees, and they're kind of comic relief characters, but they're constantly making sex jokes about her ass, about whatever. When she rides off, they're like, "Oh, deputy, you hitting that yet?" And they're making and admittedly, them you can kind of forgive slightly because they're at least meant to be sleazy old men, so it at least works. But she's like actually written just to, that's all she thinks about. But anyway, so she actually dies like a scene or two later. And her little brother shows up, because the idea that they present in the movie is that the kids keep going to their own homes to kill their parents. Maybe they're on autopilot and like, I'm going to walk home.
Yeah.
And so up until now, we've seen the kids always hug the person. They act as if, "Oh, mommy, daddy," and they do talk, they do say stuff. And the brother's coming up to her, and of course, big sister's not really wanting to hug, and she's like, "What are you doing? Get away from me, you little shit." This is where we find out that it's not just touching that actually does the melting, because she slaps him a couple of times across the face, and she doesn't get like melted or anything. She gets melted in a minute anyway, off camera, but it does, she slaps him, and I'm like, all right, so it's not just touch is instantly deadly. There's actual, like, their hands have to actually go like the black nails, and then they have to initiate it themselves.
I wonder if it's something about just like the act of hugging, if it just like releases something.
I know, because the other main guy who's with the sheriff a lot of the movie, John, he gets his hand burned because his daughter just grabs his hand.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
So I think the hands are the key part. It has to be the hands, which makes no sense, but sure.
No. Yeah, I think one of the kind of flaws with this too is I really like that first scene, where the kid first hugs their mother and she melts, but then that's kind of like you don't really go much from there. Like all the kills are pretty much the same.
Yeah, it's pretty similar. and some of them will just start being off camera, and most of the movie is just like meeting all these weird parents, and like some are like this, some are like that. Like one of the girls' parents, like they're kind of well off, and she's like topless sunbathing, and she's like this awful parent who doesn't even care if her daughter's home. It's like, the little shit's just running away somewhere.
Yeah. To be fair, I think these kids are better off in a giant yellow radioactive cloud than with some of their parents.
Yeah, and John, who's the main character who assists the sheriff throughout most of the movie, his wife's pregnant as well.
Oh, yeah.
So no points if you guess where the ending's going. But so once they realize what's going on and they find like a body or two, the deputy is the one who finds like two of them in the road, and he gets killed there. Once it becomes clear, right, there's people dying, and the sheriff and John start like going around and finding more dead people. It basically just becomes them going back to John's house and making sure his wife and his son, who didn't go to school that day because he was sick, who gets killed anyway, by the way. His friend comes in the window and like he thinks he's played hide and seek with them, and then his friend kills him. So, but they basically just go back to his house and they try and haul up. They go and try and find the kids. He gets burned, and they realize the kids are the ones responsible. And then, like, his wife like throws a fit when she realizes they're shooting at the kids and attacks the sheriff, and it just and then she goes upstairs and she sees her dead son now, who's been melted by the other kid. And the sheriff like gets up, and conveniently the family have got a katana on the wall, so he grabs a katana.
And this is when the movie starts picking up again.
Yeah, because it's really boring before this, I think, and then it picks up when he starts cutting off limbs. He starts cutting off limbs. John shoots the kid in the chest, and then he comes in and cuts off his arms, his hands, and it's pretty funny. So that's good. But unfortunately, though, right after this, it gets boring again because they're like, we need to go hunt the rest. So there's a couple of kids coming towards the house, and they deal with them, but then they have to go hunting for the kids, and they end up there's a good 5-10 minutes of them just wandering about in the dark, and they eventually get to a barn where they find the kids. And that whole thing just there's no excitement. It just kind of drones on.
Really, lingers, but
and then one of the kids tries to trick the dad, and then the sheriff ends up chopping their hands all off. But then when the sheriff goes back to his car, there's a kid behind him in the back seat who's still got one hand left and melts him, so the sheriff dies. John comes out and takes care of business with the kid, and then he goes home, and then we get this really weird montage because his wife's water breaks, so we hear audio of him delivering the baby as we see a montage of all the dead people in the town, which is like half the town at this point, like all these kids, tons of adults, tons of the parents, and it's like, oh honey, keep pushing, keep it, like both your kids are dead, you had to yourself kill your daughter, and your son was melted by another zombie kid. Right? But so he's delivering the baby, and at the end of the montage it goes back to them, and the baby's delivered, and they look all happy. You know, your two other kids just died, whatever. Which, this is the funny thing about the movie, is I feel like she's the only character who seems to actually care that they're attacking kids.
Yeah.
Like, you'd think there'd be more shock and more of a grace period of acceptance where they have to actually realise, oh shit, the kids are dangerous.
Yeah, like, I always get upset in like zombie movies when a character is like, reluctant to kill their best friend or something, they're like, oh, I can't do it, they're, even though they're like a crazed monster coming at them. But this is like the one movie where it kind of makes sense.
It's the polar opposite.
Yeah.
They don't care. At no point does the sheriff and John like go, oh, maybe we shouldn't, they're kids. Because even in the typical zombie movie, they'd look like zombies, so it'd be easier to accept it. Whereas here, they still mostly just look like the kids.
Yeah.
And they were like, get the shotguns. We're mowing these little shits down.
Yeah. Even if they have black fingernails, you could just be like, oh, maybe they're going goth or something. You don't instantly assume, oh, radioactive zombie.
Was the goth movement a thing in 1980, Tim? I can't remember if it goes that far back.
I don't know if at the start of the 80s, like, it definitely started at some point in the 80s, but it might have been more like mid 80s or so.
Yeah, I don't know. So someone with a good history of the goth movement can fill us in.
Who knows? Might have even been inspired partially by this movie. We don't know.
Aye, they saw it and it made them sad, so they went all dark and gothic. Yeah. But no, so at the end of the movie, he's delivered the baby, and the wife's all happy again, forgetting the fact that their kids are dead, and all the other kids, every kid in the town is dead. All the kids who went to this school maybe not okay, the high school kids, if there is any, we won't see any of the entire movie, but all the grade school kids, or the junior high, I don't know junior high, but it looks at the age.
Yeah.
Kind of borderline. It's kind of...
Maybe 5th, 6th grade.
Yeah.
Around there.
Some of them are a bit older, but yeah, they're both a bit. But anyway, all the kids in the town are dead. But hey, we've got a new baby. Woohoo. And then John looks down, and the little kid who's sucking on her boob right now, he's being breastfed, has got black fingernails, which makes no goddamn sense. No. Like, I knew it was about to do it. I knew it was going to do this twist because it just seemed like the stupid thing to do. But why is the kid infected? The mom was never anywhere near the cloud.
Yeah, or like you could have done something where, like, if they showed the radioactive waste dripping into the water or something, maybe you could have had a point. But yeah, there wasn't really any indication that this was something that was spreading, really.
Yeah, and it treats that like a big, sort of jumpy cliffhanger. Dun dun dun. Cut to credits, and that's the end of the movie. This is a thing.
Yeah.
So
now.
On you go.
Oh, well, I was just gonna say there was some like proper zombie stuff in it that I liked. I really liked the scene when they're in the house and like the hands just like like burst through the like door. I think that might be like the first instance where he chops the hands off.
Yeah.
And there's a few like parts like that I really liked.
I think there's I think the actual money moments like that are actually generally okay. I mean, they're not amazing, but they're good for a movie of this budget. I think the problem is that the characters are pretty dull and boring and uninteresting, and therefore all the rest of the movie, where it's just them kind of wandering around and trying to figure out what's going on, is mostly dull and uninteresting. I mean, it's definitely not the worst thing ever, but it's...
Yeah, I mean, in 2 or 3 months, the only thing you're going to remember about this movie are the kids hugging people and melting them. You're not going to remember any of the adult characters' names. You're not going to remember any, like, witty one-liners or crazy over-the-top goofy scenes.
Nah, I mean, I might remember a couple of the sheriff's, like, facial reactions to things as he's shocked because he was really overdoing it, but that's kind of it. It's pretty forgettable otherwise, which is a shame, but...
I feel like this could be like a decent background movie to have, like if you're having a party where you're kind of just hanging out with friends and you want something on in the background that occasionally people can look over and be like, oh, did they just shoot a kid a bunch of times? All right, back to the...
Especially since the dull parts are so long that you can conceivably miss like 20 minutes and still have a good idea what's going on. Like, you wouldn't be that confused. So yeah, that kind of works. A couple of things I want to point out that probably budget things. Well, one of them is definitely a budget thing. The other thing's really weird. But so the first weird thing is there's no police station in this movie. We're following the sheriff and the deputy a lot of the movie, especially the sheriff. But even when he's radioing someone, it doesn't radio back to the station. It radios back to the store owner who's got a radio, and she talks to the sheriff.
That, yeah.
And like, well, is there not a station to talk to? Is there not like? I mean, I guess it's a small town, but there'll still be a small police station.
Yeah, at least, an office with a couple of desks or something.
Yeah. Is this store owner doubling as the police station, like, receptionist? Does she, like, both? Like, what's going on? So that was weird. And the other thing is that when the kids start getting their hands chopped off, they basically do this. But they've got a long sleeve, and they have their...
Oh, yeah.
You can clearly see their hand is still inside the sleeve. Because it's far too long compared to the other one that's still got a hand, and it's just it's really, really obvious what they're doing. It's really simple, but they didn't really try to hide it that much. So I'm calling it like I see it, Timmy. I'm calling it like I see it.
That's fair.
That's pretty much it, though. This guy's kind of goofy. There was some stupid, silly attempts at humor, but it didn't really pan out.
You know what I feel like this movie missed is they needed to have that like scientist character that like explains everything at some point, like oh my god, these kids they must have been exposed to radium-47 and like I have a cure, and then he gets like melted before he can finish his thought or something.
I was really expecting him to go back to the plant before the end of the movie, Like, I expected the finale to happen there, because we get those two plant guys, the two workers who are sort of neglectful of their job, which is what causes the whole thing in the first place. And we don't even see them again. They don't care. They're off having beer. They're fine. They don't even care what's happening in this town.
Yeah. That's a very good point. In the beginning of this movie, we're set up that all this is caused by these two people's incompetence, for which they get no comeuppance whatsoever.
Not one. And you almost expect like a lab character who works there to see what's going on and like get in contact with the sheriff or something, and the whole thing's just not there.
I don't think there's even any point where the sheriff realizes like, oh, this must have come from the plant here or something, where they could have like.
That's a very good point. I don't even think, not only does he not even think that, I don't think at any point does the sheriff or any of the characters actually question, how did this happen?
Yeah.
They just take it for granted. Oh, the kids are killing us now. We need to shoot them. It never gets more complicated than that. It's kind of weird.
Oh. I would live in a small town.
Let's talk about a weird scene.
Okay.
Because there's one scene that stands out to me, especially because it doesn't really go anywhere. I don't think you see him again. It's at the roadblock, and this posh car comes up. And there's this really cheesy guy, this really cheesy kind of try to be hip guy, and he's in the back, and he's like, no one's allowed in town, sir. The deputy tells him. He's like, oh, you must not know who I am. And he's got this really cheesy smile, and he's like, call someone in town. I don't know, I can't remember her name. Call what's her face. He's like, I don't know her number. And he calls her, and he makes the deputy talk to her, and then the deputy says, well, I guess you can go in. And he lets her in, and I'm like, where did that go? Do we see him again? Did we see him get melted? I don't think you see him again.
Not that I recall.
Which begs the question, what was the point of that scene?
I wonder if it's supposed to lead to something else that they had to cut, or if it was just like, maybe that's like the producer's brother who is like, you gotta put me in the movie, come on, man, like. It's
just such a weird scene because he's so eccentric and he's like really cheesy, and you kind of, he's the sort of character where after like a minute of seeing him, you're like, oh, I'm looking forward to your death scene. I'm going to enjoy watching you die.
It seems like set up for this big glorious, kind of like crowd cheering, like, yeah, finally he got his, but nothing ever comes of it.
It's weird. It's funny, after the movie finished, I was just sort of sitting thinking, I went, oh yeah, what happened to that guy? He never popped back up again. That was really
weird. I don't even think I thought of it until you brought it up.
Yeah, so stupid. Tim dropping things.
Yeah, I was fiddling with a coaster.
The lack of professionalism on this show is mind-boggling at times, Tim. Mind-boggling. All right,
Can't let my hand stand still for too long. I gotta give someone a hug.
To sum up then, it's got some moments. If you like your cheesy bad movies, it's an okay watch for background noise, but I wouldn't recommend it as like main entertainment because it is too dull. It has too many long stretches of just kind of boredom. But it does have some funny moments.
And if you can find like a super cut of all of those moments, or just watching, kind of skip around till you see something cool, I definitely recommend doing that. But if you're expecting, I only have one night off where I can really sit down and enjoy a movie, this probably isn't the best bet for that.
But it is on YouTube for free, so I mean, so if that's a factor, then yeah, sure, you've got it there to watch. But I wouldn't recommend it as an actual movie. Background noise, I mean, Tim said at a party, something like that. If you got friends over, put it on the background. So it's something you can make fun of occasionally, but then ignore for long stretches of time. That's probably the best I can recommend it.
If you're thinking of having children, I guess it's okay to kind of show you what it's like, but I don't know.
If the missus is wanting a kid and you don't want a kid, show her this movie and she'll go off the idea. She'll go off the idea, and that's it's like cinematic birth control is what it is.
She'll just go back to wanting kisses all the time. Like, as we know, that's all women want.
According to this movie.
Especially when you're at work.
Molly, that was her name. Molly. I think that was her anyway. There's no picture. See, this is the problem with these really small, like low budget movies that are old and no one cares about, is that they don't have any pictures on IMDb. I can't recognise who any of the characters are.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming Molly was the girl, but I
just have to track her down and find out.
Could also be Susie.
Well, I'm sure we'll never watch it again, so
Yeah, that's fine.
we'll never know.
I guess that leaves us to ratings. That's a tough one to rate, actually, because
I'm thinking around, for me, and this might be too generous, but I was kind of flirting with like a 4.5, 5-ish area.
yeah, I don't think that's too generous.
Yeah,
I think that's kind of on the money, to be honest. I think I'd be tempted to go with a 5 out of 10, because
yeah.
it does have its moments, and it's not. I don't regret watching it, but it's at the same time it is pretty forgettable, and it has long stretches of boredom.
Yeah, and honestly, like without that, it really could have been, not a classic, but if you just spiced it up a little bit, made it a little more interesting, gave the characters a little more depth, it could have easily been like a 6-ish range movie, or like a pretty okay, decent movie that you'd feel better about recommending.
Yeah,
but it's just that kind of slowness and meandering that really weighs it down.
no, I agree. It's so yeah, I'm going with 5. You sitting on that?
I'll concur. 5.
Which is still one of the highest numbers we've given out this year, Tim.
Yeah, if it's any consolation, I enjoyed this much more than a lot of other movies we've seen so far this year.
Don't Knock Twice, Arbor Demon.
Oh god.
Bye Bye Man, Rings. It's been a hectic few months, Tim. It's been really depressing.
I don't know if people really appreciate some of the stuff we put ourselves through.
Well, that's been Screams After Midnight, folks. Let us know what you think of The Children if you've seen it in the comments below. I don't imagine there's many of you. That's okay. Let us know what you thought of the movie anyway. Like and subscribe and all that stuff helps us out a lot. Get us on Twitter at mild_fuzz for channel updates. You can get individual Twitters for me and Timmy if you want to get our everyday ramblings. I'm at Wibble89. Tim's at Tim Vargulish. And that's us. So thanks for watching, guys. Remember that me and Tim do an episode of Screams After Midnight. Of course we do Screams After Midnight every week. We do an episode of Tales from the Crypt every week, kind of similar to this, where we just watch an episode of Tales and we talk about it. We're nearly at the end of season 2 now. We've been doing that for a few months. It's good fun, so check that out if you want to. Plus there's other movie reviews and TV reviews and stuff on the channel. So thanks for watching, guys. We will see you next